Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement in lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Colin, welcome to Lawyers Who Learn. Really excited to talk about LawQi and your background. You're right now in Ontario. Is that correct? Or somewhere?
That's right, David. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Obviously, I'm excited to talk about what I'm doing, but I do appreciate work that you do as well to shine a light on the other lawyers who learn.
Yeah, it's sometimes I feel like it's an impossible task because there's only so many hours in the day, and every conversation I love, and I do more and more. And one of the things that as pre-work for this interview, you answered 5 questions that are a little bit off the beaten path. And sometimes I'm thinking about maybe I'll just send those questions to as many lawyers as possible just to tell their story because there's only so many interviews. But let's tell your story. And I know you've told it before. You were really recently on Tom Martin's blog, podcast, Law Droid, or I saw that interview. You were also at the CLE conference 2 weeks ago because you were at the I think it's called the Legal Innovation Awards.
The American Legal Technology Awards.
Thank you. And your LawQi got runner-up for a category, if that's the right way to phrase
it. In the individual category for work that I did in helping lawyers learn, actually.
Okay. Then you found the right podcast to be on. So before we dive into LawQi, one of the things that I read about your background is before you started, you're an attorney. And in fact, you were exposed to law as early as 10 years old while working at summer camps, I think, or some degree, that's where you got interested in that. I would love to hear that story. And then specifically before you started LawQi, and you worked as a lawyer in telecom regulatory law before that, but before you started LawQi, you also started a consulting firm called PGYA. Please govern yourself accordingly. So love the name, love the way you did that. So I threw a couple things out at you. Feel free to start where you want, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'll take a shot at starting chronologically, even though that invites the risk of making these longer.
I'll interrupt, don't worry.
Yeah, 10 years old, attending a summer camp, mini university at the University of Manitoba. The afternoons were spent swimming, archery, running, gym, typical camp stuff. The mornings were spent getting exposed to different disciplines, not in an academic way, but in a way that you shepherd 10-year-olds across the university campus. And that's where I was first exposed to the idea of law. And I thought, this is something really cool. I think I would like to do that.
Wait, just to be clear, you're saying at a sleepaway camp, they exposed you to what it's like to be a lawyer?
The concept of law, what law is. So it wasn't even a sleepaway camp. This was a 5-minute walk from my house where I lived near the university. It was a day camp. And so there'd be a section on law, a section on computer science, a section on geology, on architecture, on...
Got it. So it was less of a playing camp, or was half playing and half learning?
Bingo. Yeah.
Wow. So first of all, clap to them, because I would say probably some people in high school, or dare I say college, are not even introduced to the concepts of what law is and common law and how the fundamental system works. So I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it's fortunate for that to happen because I actually never met a lawyer until I was in university.
Okay. Wow.
I was an adult until I even met a lawyer. None in my family, nobody had gone to university in my family.
Right? Out of curiosity, looking back, is it looking backwards at that moment where you realize that had an impact on you? Or when you were 10, did something happen? You're like, I think I'm going to be a lawyer.
It was not even I'm going to be a lawyer. It's that being exposed to the idea of law as these are the rules of the game. I had my Atari 2600. I was a gamer. I liked board games. I liked knowing how things worked from a rules perspective. And that was actually the connection. It was a cheat code to society, how different parts of society and commerce and rights work. That was it. I was not committed at all to the idea of being a lawyer. I was committed to the idea of saying, I'll do law school and figure it out from there.
Okay, but at 10 years old, you'd like, okay, this is the cheat code to society. The best way to continue understanding that cheat code, when I graduate college, I'm going to go to law school.
Bingo. That's exactly right.
That's pretty compelling and also unique because most 10-year-olds don't make that decision.
Okay. It was odd in many ways.
Odd is the superpower to success in many ways too. All right,
Yeah.
continue. Sorry.
So the way the other components came together is I was also entrepreneurial. So I said, what am I going to do as a degree before law, business? I had like multiple paper routes for many years. I had a lawn mowing company. I was a high salesman in chocolate bar and fundraising sales for school. So I was entrepreneurial. As I matured in my thinking, I thought I always want to do something that I'm part of the business. But again, I want to know how all this stuff works. And so the way that wound up playing out professionally was in Canada, we have this thing called articling, which is like an apprenticeship year after you graduate. You're working under the tutelage of a senior lawyer.
And how many years is law school in Canada?
3.
Including plus that fourth, plus that
Plus the 4th
okay.
year.
Because I know some jurisdictions, maybe in the UK, the 3rd year is actually the apprentice year, from what I understand. And it's just a pause there for a second. It's a conversation I've had on many different episodes of this podcast about what kind of reforms are needed in the US legal education system. 1, to reduce costs, and 2, to get attorneys actually more prepared to practice law in this ever-changing AI transform. What I like to say is legal training is having its moment right now.
Yes.
Actually, Ian Nelson from Hot Shots like to say that, and I copy it. And obviously you're in it. So it's interesting to hear the apprentice model is a 4th. So you actually have 4 years almost of training. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why there's only 130,000 attorneys in Canada versus
there could be some connection to that. So in that environment, I was a 20 lawyer firm, did a little bit of everything, like employment, criminal, child welfare, the full gamut. And they finished that on a Friday, and on the Monday, I'm working in the regulatory department of a phone company. And then from that point forward, for the next 27 years to now, I was always working with somebody in technology. So in the first half, when I'm with phone companies and cable companies, we're doing law about technology, law about internet, law about telecom regulation, broadcasting, copyright, industrial policy, and so on. There's always a technical aspect. The second half of my career, from about 2010, 11 on, it was the technology aspects of law. So legal publishing, legal AI, legal tech. That's
what year did you start your consulting firm?
2015.
2015. You called it Please Govern Yourself Accordingly. What's the origin of that name?
I had been working in legal publishing, managing an organization called CanLE, Canadian Legal Information Institute. It's the most used legal research resource in Canada, more than Westlaw, more than Lexis. It was also a nonprofit owned by all the legal regulators. So that perch gave me really strong connections into all the changes that were coming to legal tech, to legal markets. I forced me to pay attention to what was happening in the UK with the Legal Services Act and Australia and all that. And so the consulting firm that I started in 2015 was about technology and legal market transformation. So my tagline was, the legal market is changing, please govern yourself accordingly. I picked PGYA because I wanted a short URL. And I picked that because I always love that aspect of that lawyer, like the kind of lawyer who would use that unironically was the one I needed to reach and serve and support.
Were you serving individual attorneys or large law firms?
It was a mix. I did projects for the Canadian Bar Association. I did work on innovation for them. I worked with judges. I did events for judges. I did events for law libraries.
What were you doing?
It was almost like predominantly environmental scans. Like, what is happening out in the world? Where are the changes coming from? What's the rate of change? So I can say
almost like research, like deep research.
It was more like, let's oversimplify it and call it, I was creating like digests of what Richard Susskind and others were preaching in the large halls. I was helping people understand in the small. So with law firms, that was about helping them think through their strategic decision making.
Are you familiar with Ari Kaplan?
Yes.
Because I know that's one part of what he does as well. Are you familiar with what he works on?
Yeah, I know his work more as a podcaster than
he does everything, right? Yeah. He's a man of many talents, but I know he works and does large sort of reports for law firms in the state of the market.
Yeah.
Have you, just to skip ahead for a second, how has deep research through ChatGPT and other platforms helped you or how do you recommend that for law firms and clients today? I use it regularly. I use it yesterday to build a whole analysis of the CLE market and what the future is and what it does. Maybe it took an hour, maybe a half hour, and it compiles these institutes that put together reports on different industries. It finds them, it compiles them. So what you said about Richard Suskins, and it does what probably I would have paid somebody $5,000 to do it in the past. And so I'm just curious how you think about deep research ChatGPT for law firms right now to use.
I think they should be using it constantly. I think as a vehicle through which to explore ideas, to test like hypotheses, and to imagine how things will play out. I'll give you like a couple examples of how I've used it in client engagements. So I did an event for a group of legal insurers earlier this year, and part of what I did was I wanted to orient them on where AI was, that were well beyond chatbots. I wanted to show them deep research, but the way I showed them deep research was I ran multiple deep research reviews, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT's version concurrently against their websites, asked it to develop a thesis around some of the key issues that they're going to have to concern themselves with. Then I consolidated the three reports into Claude and asked it to turn it into a really nice, pretty HTML output that looks like what you're presenting to the room. And then I explained to them how that took a half an hour, and that the last 15 minutes was making it pretty.
100%. And so more often than not, though, I find, even for myself, I'm like, oh, I should be using this. But 9 out of 10 times, I don't use tools like deep research. I don't use AI agents that ChatGPT has. I'm not using Claude in the way that I should be. And that's what my interview that I know you said you watched with Connor Grennan was talking about. Is like, it's the behavioral change that is the hardest part, knowing what to do. And I'm wondering, how does that tie into your current company, LawQi, spelled LAWQI.com, which I'm curious about myself, because I know a lot of what the goal of that company is to upskill and train lawyers on AI.
Yeah, I'll pick out a couple of the points from your interview with Connor. He talked about a couple of elements that were really important. One is that organizations are struggling with this, but individuals are excelling. And the second aspect was the importance of understanding enough about how these machines do this in order to be better at choosing when and why you're going to use particular tools for particular things. And so with LawQi, that was born out of an engagement I had with the Ontario Bar Association. They engaged me as their innovator in residence to help members of that bar figure out how to dance with AI more effectively. And I said, you can't do it unless they're touching the keys, unless they're actually doing it. Partnered with a company called Praxis AI, who had been working in higher education, developing digital twins of professors. So you basically take the course material in an online environment, then have an AI that knows all the course material. And the AI can then serve as both tutor and sandbox. So when a student gets stuck on course content, the AI helps them through it. When the course material says, try this, the AI is the place where they try it. So we built that, and it became the AI Academy for the Ontario Bar Association, then expanded to the Canadian Bar Association. It's currently available national to all members of the Canadian Bar Association as a member benefit. But LawQi was what we first named the AI assistant. And we took the view that we're going to learn a whole lot about how to turn this into a useful way of educating lawyers through this process. So after a year plus of that, LawQi has come together as a version that we're now bringing to smaller voluntary bar associations, law firms, and other groups who want to upskill their organizations, but do what Connor has suggested, and that's train individuals at developing that radar and that capability. So at an individual level, they move up, but it allows an organization or a community to expand their capacity.
And just to make sure I understand, why is it LawQi QI?
The number one reason was I was looking for the shortest possible URL with the word law in it, and I got a good price on LawQi. and then all rationalizations after that were post hoc.
I appreciate the honesty. But when you're saying like the word key, is it a double word on Key or no?
We could have gone with it's QI, which might be pronounced chi and refer to the flow
Right.
of everything.
Right.
And so that again, that's one of those post hoc rationalizations.
How do you pronounce it? LawQi though, right?
Key, yeah.
Yeah.
We go with
I like LawQi. Yeah. That's okay. So that was a URL that you found at the right price point. So I like a company that comes out from somebody reaching out to you to wanting to do something because you have a client ready, willing to do it. So LawQi is courses, correct? And
yes.
How many courses do you currently have?
So the way we've designed it, it is effectively one course. It is a resource that has lessons and resources within it. It's not designed as something that you complete. I can go into details of why we are not seeking CLE accreditation for it. It's intended to be self-guided and it's intended to be interactive. So people come in and out to see the content that's there to answer the questions that they have. So if they want
I'm going to do something I've never done before. Let's see if it works, if it's of value, because I don't want this to be a product demo, but you're talking about it. And I think it's an important thing. So these are the different courses that you're talking, or not courses, right. Different topics.
Yes.
So take me through how it works.
Sure. Let's jump into the middle, understanding AI.
This one right here, understanding generative AI.
Yeah. So on this page, you have essentially 4 modules. Right now it's on the what is generative AI, but if you clicked any of the other cards, the content below would shift to the other components.
Okay.
So the information is deliberately intended to be quick and snappy and to provide that bit of information that explains it in a way that allows somebody to say, okay, thank you. Now I'm going to move on to the next and the next. When we developed the first Canadian version for the AI Academies, it followed more of along top of the page was, you're going to learn 4 things. And the page was, here are the 4 things we want to teach you. Then the sidebar was, here are the takeaways from the 4 things.
But once you go through this page, is there another page on generative AI or just one page per topic?
There's multiple. So if you click the little arrow at the bottom, it goes back to the top of the page. So now you click how it actually works. Now we generated more content there.
Got it.
Then there are deeper and deeper lessons. So there's an intermediate generative AI component and so on. There's a whole series of prompting lessons, but this is the nature of the experience because what we kept hearing from the people who were using the initial versions was that they found that they were moving through things and it became work. In this, it allowed them to follow their interests. And then you see on the lower right, the little circle of LawQi at the bottom.
So this is an AI tool?
This is the AI tool. And now if you were to say, it says, okay, give me the 5 things I need to know about generative AI. It's going to draw from the underlying course material and provide links back. Because we have a lot of users who will take the prompting lessons, they'll take the introductory components, and then they'll just want to play. And so this way we make sure that the AI is drawing on the course material to generate an answer, and it will link them back to the underlying course material. In fact, we have about 80 additional concept pages that aren't in the course material that we've put in the brain. So all the information about agents and building workflows and pipelines, rather than make that a lesson, we've developed the resources, but made it part of the brain. So as people want to go deeper and deeper into their own interests, they can. So it's really intended to be something where the individual moves themselves forward and learns as they go.
And I see, so it's hosted on Praxis LXP. That's just an LMS that you're using.
Yes.
And are you happy with it?
Yeah. Praxis the folks behind Praxis have been doing this for about 20 plus years. Their AI component actually embeds into any LMS. Canvas, big university LMS, uses, for example, at the University of Notre Dame, they use the Canvas LMS, but the Praxis AI, the digital twin.
Got it. So, and what is the cost for the lawyers? I don't know if that's changes depending on the size of the firm, but just I'm trying to get a sense of what this is here.
We're doing this primarily for bar associations. Then we have different pricing for firms. So for bar associations, the most we'll ever charge a bar is $5 per member per year.
Got it.
But we can price it as low as $1 per member per year.
And how often are you adding new content to it?
Pretty frequently. When we did the Canadian one, we loaded up presented our first beta, public beta, about a year ago. And then all the reasoning models hit. And I found I needed to rewrite all of the course content because the framework that we thought about AI changed. Like you jumped on deep research right at the start of the conversation, and that was a huge turning point. This idea of reasoning and going deeper and an AI that could think. So the way you train AI in January was very different from the way you would train somebody in November.
Did you see Jack Newton's keynote at Clio?
Yes.
I just interviewed him. I interviewed Matt Clio, and I shared a clip already. I'm going to share more of the interview next week. But the overall consensus was there's 2,500 people in the room. You could hear a pin drop because when he shared the combination of the business of law and the practice of law, and then integrated AI agents to help actually complete a lot of the tasks, a lot of the elephant in the room was like, what's left for the attorney to do if this is what it looks like? And I'm curious what your thoughts were when you saw his presentation.
I believed there are very few people who could stand in front of a room and tell me that's what they were doing, and I would believe it. And I believed it. Not because of Jack. Obviously, he's delivered multiple times, but I know the VLEX people. I was formerly with VLEX, and I know what they're capable of. And so when they say it's built, and so that plus the AI work I've done, it's a watershed moment. I literally texted people.
Can you explain? I don't know if I'm explaining it well. Can you explain what is the watershed moment? How would you describe this to individual attorneys in small to mid-size, even large firms? What's to come?
No problem. The business of law, practice management systems, the tools you use to run your business, the AI that supports that is typically business process tools. Yeah, you get into some summarization and so on. You can do things more efficiently. The agents can anticipate. You can build agents that can anticipate when information is generated here, it should go there. The practice of law, the legal research component, and the underlying intelligence that goes there had its own growth trajectory around AI. But in order for it to be really effective, it's all about ensuring that the AI that you're using has context, not only of the information it should be relying on, the research side, but the business purpose to which you're putting it. That's the business side. And so the combination or the eventual combination, once all of these things are fully rolled out and people are subscribing, is incredibly powerful because it brings the right information into the brain of the AI before the AI is called into service. A big part of where people go wrong on AI, whether it's hallucinations in the materials that they submit in their briefs or otherwise, is that they don't understand what the AI is using as a starting material and what rules it's following before it does its work.
Yeah.
And before it passes it on to another system to run.
So let's say all that's true. Let's say that it actually, the trust factors there and the logic factors there. What are the implications? Let's start with a small to solo practitioner.
Yeah.
What are the implications to a solo practitioner who generally, let's say, bills by the hour as an example, and they're using this platform? How will their role or business model change in your mind?
Yeah, we're going to abstract use this platform to say that, let's just say the combination of business and practice are adequately merged in AI and that we're going to experience this in 12 months.
Correct.
Which I think is...
That's a fair statement. Fair.
Yeah. So how they have to begin thinking about it is they have to begin thinking about applying the efficiencies where they should have been applying them before, but taking the opportunity to grow and expand what they were able to consider and the business that they're able to pursue. I talked to a lot of folks at the Clio conference, and the hourly rate is great, but there are some parts of your business. For example, I talked to a fellow who did estates work. So some of his litigation, he will have opportunity on the litigation side to analyze more information in the same amount of time. So do more in less time to get a deeper understanding. But on his contract or the contract side or the writing wills and so on, he's already competitively priced down to as low as he can go. So there he should be thinking about what efficiencies can I drive? So it's not an either or. It is what part of your business would you rather spend an extra 10 hours on? And now you can do that 10 hours of thinking in less time because of AI. And what part of your business are you at the floor or near on your pricing? And that's where you have to figure out how to remove more of yourself from that work.
Do you agree with the assessment that lawyers in that room were a little bit scared about what the future means?
Yes, I think that it was a mix of, we hear him up at the top, and he's using words that I recognize the words, but I don't recognize how they come together. So there was definitely that. But also there were plenty of folks who were questioning the implications for them, and certainly among some of the other vendors that I chatted with, there was a question about what is the future market for a point solution in AI, for something
Right.
that does one thing really well. What is the future of that? Because right now that's an entry point for a lot of attorneys
Correct.
to say a document analysis tool. Great, I'm going to use that one.
It's the, I don't know what is, this is a bad example, but like the Google of AI, it's just like Google became the go-to place between searching and for me, for email, for docs, for every, it just became, you didn't need to use every different resource. And of course, they're trying to build an ecosystem because originally their methodology was an ecosystem with all these different apps. But
Yes.
eventually, if there doesn't need to be all those different apps and they have it all under their own platform, it's a different model.
Yeah. There's a third aspect like that we often leave out, but that AI really empowers slow and small firms to do right now. And that is to very quickly create the software that doesn't exist that they can throw out immediately after using it. So have you done anything with vibe coding, that idea of,
I use lovable.dev all the time, and it's
there
been,
you go.
I vibe coded. So, as a great example, and this is a question that I'm going to ask you shortly, we have 75 interviews we've done. Every interview I ask, what is books that have been impactful for you in your career? I should now actually add that to the pre-interview so it makes it easier for you. And so we vibe coded a site that takes all these books that you've said using the transcripts and has a search engine that you can
Yeah.
search and do that. And we built that in 20 minutes, which would have taken days, if not weeks, to have our developers do that in the past.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've done a lot with vibe coding. A year ago, through my work with the Ontario Bar, I hosted these weekly office hours where we'd have a guest in, talk for 30, 40 minutes on something unique. People like founders, people like Scott Stevenson from Spellbook, Cecilia Zanidi from GCAI, Damian Reel from VLEX, people like that who'd come in and talk about something. And then I'd spend the next 20 minutes, 15 minutes showing off cool things that had just been introduced. And a lawyer followed up with me one time and said, we've got this resource that we give to our clients. We're in the condo business. And we have this compendium that we give people every year. Is there something we can do with AI there? And I said, yeah, there probably is. And so about an hour later, I send her back a link and I vibe coded a tool that's like a perplexity for condo.
What tool do you use to vibe code?
So this was a year ago, I was using a mix of Replit and even just Claude. Because what I find really useful with Claude for coding as a non-coder is I can force requirements that make my life easier by saying I want everything to exist in an HTML with no external dependencies. Or I can say I want step-by-step instructions on how to run a server on my laptop in order to perform this function. So I played with Cursor, I played with Lovable, I played with Replit, but I find for the creating disposable software that does one thing really well quickly, I spend more time with Claude and
Yeah.
increasingly with Gemini.
No, Claude, it's funny. Claude, yeah, because you can just publish it on the link and it works and it's pretty
Yeah.
simple and straightforward. It's funny because Gemini, for us as an example, we use Google App Domains and Gemini comes with it now because they add that to it. But it's so underutilized because it's just like we're so over inundated with all these different platforms and softwares, and we're paying for Claude, we're paying for ChatGPT, and does Gemini do the trick? I don't know. Like that's where I think is interesting to me. Okay, just to get to that question that I said, hopefully it was sparking some ideas where I mentioned it. It is really important to me to hear what books have been transformative, either on mindset or business or any type of learning in your career, because to me, a $15 book is the best ROI you can ever get in anything that you do. And I know how transformative they can be.
Yeah. So I'd say the book I've recommended most often in my life is called Systems of Survival by Jane Jacobs. She became famous for writing The Death and Life of Great American Cities. I think that was the name of her like breakthrough book. But Systems of Survival is a quick little paperback read. It's about 250 pages, and it runs as a dialogue between five people over a course of multiple weekends, where they try and devise use the word syndromes, but let's just call them factors. What are the factors in the commercial sector that define good and powerful and useful and helpful? And what are the factors in what they call the guardian class, which would be government, public sector, and so on, that define these components? And so certain things like cooperation. Cooperation doesn't mean the same in a commercial context versus a guardian class or a public sector context. And the reason this
Hey,
is
can you do me a favor? Can you talk to me like I'm a fifth grader? Because I'm getting lost.
Yeah, no problem.
Give me one to two sentences as if I'm a fifth grader, what it is.
Okay, let's back it up to the why. The why this book is meaningful is that how is it that one group of people that you spend time with believe the same things and another group of people in a different environment don't? So this isn't a political book. This is an explanation about how the communities that we're in treat their morality and their guiding lights differently based in large part on the communities that they're in. And it doesn't always work to mix. So it's one of many books that I've really enjoyed that help me understand or help me unravel my confusion when I deal with somebody.
What year was it written about?
I think it was like the late 80s, early 90s.
Got it.
So my exposure to it was at a time when I was working as a regulatory lawyer for a phone company. So my immediate context was I work for a publicly traded business that is investing billions of dollars in infrastructure and trying to grow something. But I have to convince a regulator who follows a different set of rules on what's good and necessary from a public policy perspective. So the immediate value to me then was it helped me understand the mindset of the people I was trying to convince. But why it becomes such an unlock is because that it carries through. Like you can't convince anyone of anything if you don't understand their mindset.
No, I think that's a very interesting, important book. Like obviously religion is a key component to why you said politics and religion. Those are the two big areas where you get the groups and why they have certain morals and beliefs that others don't. And then of course there's other areas and communities and things like that. Is there another, I like to get a second book sometimes. Is there another book that maybe even that's been helpful for you even more recently, potentially?
Yeah, slightly more recently, like Thinking Fast and Slow.
Okay. I don't know that book.
It's Daniel Kahneman.
Okay. What's the why of that book?
How you come to conclusions based on either that immediate perception or through the deeper thinking. Like I'm a sucker for any book that goes into thinking, the brain, persuasion, like how we act and react, and trying to dig into those explanations. Like Robert Cialdini with Persuasion. Persuasion. So those are all great
Persuasion,
books.
exactly, yeah. I remember reading an Influence. I'm not sure which one of his books it was, but it was talking about, I think, a company that was maybe selling mattresses. And it was about having clouds in the background on the site in blue versus a different color. And the amount of orders it got by just changing the clouds to something else was so significant. And then the persuasion was like, they had somebody asking questions ahead of time on a street. I don't know if you remember this example. And then based on the question you were asked ahead of time, you were 30% more likely to buy something based on somebody else asking a random question. I wish I could remember the specifics, but it blew my mind. The data you shared.
Those are all the things like I see persuasion right there. And
maybe I'll reread it. It's just finding the time to dedicate. That's the challenge, right?
That's the thing, right? Is that I love these for podcasts that sort of fall into that category. There's this one great one called So You Think You're Smart.
Oh, I like that.
And it's a lot about people who dig into topics of thinking and persuasion. And so through COVID and others, there were lots of episodes on conspiracy theories and other components that sort of arose over the past several years. These are just phenomenal unlocks. Like going back to what I said, why did I like law? Because it showed me like a way to unlock some understanding. Why, like the books that speak to me, they unlock some understanding that people in process.
I love that. And I think maybe that will be some form of a title to this podcast, like the unlock, right?
Yeah. How do you unlock understanding?
Exactly. Two more questions.
Yeah.
One, you do a lot of interviews, you speak a lot, you network a lot. Is there a question that you're never really asked about your learning and growth journey, or you never get to talk about as much because you always talk about the same things that we talked about today, that you wish if you had the opportunity to, you would bring it up so people were more aware? Maybe not, but I just like to ask that sometimes to make sure there's something that you would want to cover that you don't.
No, it's a fun question. I don't know. I don't, I've been involved in like a number of different spaces, and often I have a particular focus, but I never feel like there's anything or any opportunity not to bring something out. Like I don't have any, like I'm really a great pianist. Because I'm not. Like I have no burning
Well, you have
urge
been on a
to.
co-ed softball team for the past 20 years.
Oh, there you go. That's okay. We can talk about that.
That's
So,
cool.
oh yeah, and I think I put on your pre-sheet that I have still not been assigned a permanent position.
That's not a good sign for you, I don't think.
Yeah, well,
Is that,
I'm
let's
either
put him in right field. Right field.
I'm either a valuable utility player. No, when our best guy's off, they put me in shortstop.
That's
I
good.
used to be a regular pitcher till I got the yips. But the key thing about my softball experience is as long as I get like one out of the park dinger a year, I have the ego to keep going and think I can go forever.
It's funny you say that. They also say that about golf. You can do like a whole 18 holes and 17 of those holes are terrible, but then you get one like par or bogey or whatever, or something that's really good. You're like, okay, I can do this one more time. And maybe that's all you need to keep going. And then my last question goes back to your business and LawQi and what you're doing right now. You're an entrepreneur, you're an intellectual, you're smart. Where do you see this going? How much do you want to scale what you're doing now? If you had to look back to 2030 and you're telling the story of what you've accomplished in past tense, what would the past tense be of what you did the past 5 years?
I leveled like I want to be able to say that I leveled up people who otherwise would have been left behind. Could probably think of a nicer way of saying that, but I truly fear for large parts of the profession because we have a short window left to understand how AI works.
Yeah.
At which point we're going to understand how to use tools. We're back to training on specific tools and not understanding how AI works. So I don't want a large number of people left behind. I want to move them forward because with LawQi, I tell people LawQi isn't a business it's not venture scale. Because when the opportunity to train people goes away, then in what I'm doing, I'm training them on AI. Like what you're doing with Lawline, you're training them on stuff that they're always going to need to continue to grow and learn on. There's always elements of their practice. I'm focusing right now on that one narrow part about you have to learn how to use AI so you can be ready to take on whatever weird thing happens next.
And of course, AI is our number one focus right now too. We just launched an AI hub. It has 100 hours of content. So totally with you on that. I'm sure you're familiar with SMART goals, right?
Yeah.
Specific measurable goals with dates and time frames. You said you want to help make sure people don't get people, and I assume you mean attorneys. Let me push back and say, or push you more and say, you're looking back, how many attorneys did you prevent from being left behind it in 2030? What number?
Okay. I want it to be 6 figures minimum. Like I want to know that I will have impacted through the work, minimum 100,000 attorneys.
So you have helped 100,000 attorneys not get left behind by taking courses or learning through your platform, LawQi.
Yes, I believe, and again, there's a reason why we've priced it so low, because we know that a successful student leaves and doesn't wind up dwelling on our course material, waiting for updates, or spending time using our AI. So they can move through quickly, level up, and then apply what they've learned to the tools that are right for their practice. So bar associations are the vehicle through which we're going to do it.
And I'll ask one more question because you're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And just to get a sense of where your mind's at, where does growth of the business come into play with that 100,000 number? Because certainly you can start a nonprofit and make sure it gets to everybody and just have enough money to cover the nonprofit and the salaries and whatever is needed versus that. So where does being an entrepreneur and growing a business that you maybe eventually sell or do something where does that fall into the year 2030 when you're looking back, where are you at?
So like I said, the 100,000 is the minimum. I like it to be much higher. The entrepreneurial part of me says, if I'm selling now that I believe has a shelf life, how does the business grow? Well, the business grows from having a trusted relationship with 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 attorneys, and then we figure out what to do with that. And so that's my end of 2026, 2027 is that after building up that level of support and connection, how am I directing that? And then frankly, as an entrepreneur, I'm excited for not knowing that answer right now.
Sure. How many employees do you want to have?
Never more than 10.
Got it. No, yeah, totally. And when you say 100,000, that's US and Canadian attorneys?
That's US. Canada, but my already reaches, it's already available to 40,000 members, but I actually want to see 100,000 go through.
Got it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Those, of course, are all techniques I'm sure you've used in your career that I use. That's the law of attraction and other things like that, where you look backwards instead of forward. You use SMART goals to help you figure out really things that you can set timelines to and that are attainable and measurable. And so thanks for doing it publicly here. Now you can look back and have this saved in 2030 and see what you're doing. I really appreciate your time, Colin, and thank you for joining. And anyone who's gotten this far, I know you've gotten a ton of value. So once again, another
David, thank you.
Lawyers Who Learn episodes in the book. So thank you.